This video is based on a blog post I made some time ago and thought it was worth revisiting in a different format. I'm not a particularly voracious reader, unlike my wife and daughter. However, a few years of driving a good distance back and forth to work gave me the opportunity to dive into the world of audiobooks. A major part of that experience was discovering Discworld, a fantasy comedy series comprising some 41 novels written by late English author Sir Terry Pratchett. I completed all the novels over a couple of years, and I have to say, this is my favorite book series out of, 300 or so audiobooks I've read so far. I'm originally from the UK, and the Discworld has a definite, but not distracting, British sensibility, including dry, absurdist humour and puns. The books are all set on the Discworld, a sort of carnival mirror version of our own world from the past, except the world is a literal disc, has magic, and is populated by humans, dwarfs, trolls, fairies, witches, wizards, gods, and assorted monsters. Oh, and the Discworld is carried through the cosmos on the back of 4 huge elephants, which in turn stand upon the back of a giant space turtle. It makes a little more sense in the context of the novels, please trust me on this. The stories are largely standalone parts of the whole and can be read in essentially any order without much trouble, although I happen to read them in the order they were written. I would say that the first few stories are a little different in tone from the rest of the series, so bear that in mind if you're trying something at random. There are also some stories that can be grouped into series within the overall collection, such as those involving the City Watch or the witches and so on. You do get a sense of time passing as you go through the books, as technology of a quirky sort pops up in later stories, and we do go from the century of the fruit bat to the century of the anchovy. But it does not greatly affect your ability to jump in anywhere to test the waters. For a chronological listing of the Discworld novels, see the links in the video description below. The character of Death is quite interesting, and appears in almost all the stories to some degree, although sometimes just as a brief cameo. Death is presented as a Grim Reaper figure, a tall skeleton with a scythe and black robes, and is not a bad guy, but one who performs a necessary function in the grand scheme of things. Death loves cats, has a white horse named Binky, and may enjoy a curry from time to time, although the actual mechanics of a skeleton eating are perhaps thankfully avoided. While cats and witches can see him, most other mortals cannot. More accurately, they can see him, but their higher brains refuse to acknowledge such a thing, and so they effectively don't register his presence. Death is careful to clarify he does not kill people. He meets them at the point of their death and ushers them to the great beyond. Many other things on the Discworld are familiar but a bit off-kilter. For example, there are 8 days in the Discworld week, and there is an extra colour, octarine, which is also the colour of magic, and the colour of magic was the first published Discworld novel. A year lasts 800 days, and there are 2 of each season. The books are funny, silly, and sometimes thought-provoking, or even profound. Occasionally, all of these within a few paragraphs. Some of the early entries in the series were more like humorous parodies of sword and sorcery novels, but there is much more variety across the whole collection, and sometimes the author tackles thorny social themes, but with a humour and a kind touch. In that regard, it's reminiscent of the original Star Trek episodes where they would explore issues like racism, but in a science fiction setting that seems safer while still making a point. I dreaded reading the last novel, which was part of the Tiffany Aching series of 5 young adult novels still within the Discworld setting. This is because I knew there were no more stories after that. So Terry lost his battle with Alzheimer's just before the novel was published, and his friend and sometimes co-author on other novels, Neil Gaiman, indicated that Sir Terry had some ideas for the last novel, The Shepherd's Crown, that he did not manage to include due to his illness. You even unfortunately get a sense of that while reading it, that there might have been more to say. Very sad. My favourite characters would be, not necessarily in order, Granny Esmeralda Weatherwax, who's the head witch in a small rural coven we spend time with, Commander Samuel Vimes of the Ankh-Morpork City Watch, Death, of course, and Tiffany Aking, a young witch in training. Since there is no overarching story or quest, I would urge you to try one of the books just to see how it fits. If you don't enjoy it, then no harm done. If you do, then there is such a vast amount of reading enjoyment waiting for you in the series. There were a few attempts at realizing the Discworld on TV, both in live action and animated form. The ones I have watched were a bit hit or miss, but had some enjoyable moments. Oddly enough, the TV version I think I enjoyed most overall was the BBC series The Watch, which was quote-unquote inspired by the characters of the Ankh-Morpork City Watch, their police department. While this series was a reinterpretation in a sort of steampunk setting, featuring some race and gender-swapped characters, I found it to be more entertaining and polished than some of the other offerings, and featured enjoyable performances in the lead roles. It honestly was not received all that well by critics or viewers, but I liked it. Anyway, I hope you will give the Discworld novels a try. I think this series really is something special. Thanks as always for watching. Please check out the links below.